Well, it looks like the city of Ferguson is at it again. Some of you may feel that justice was done in their previous issues. Some of you may feel that justice wasn't done in previous issues. But in my opinion, the city of Ferguson is attempted to thumb their noses at the federal government, and even when they have been found to be guilty of discrimination against the minority citizens in the city, and they agreed with the findings and agreed to a settlement with the federal government, they've decided that they aren't going to honor the agreement, and they can arbitrarily make changes to that agreement without consulting the Department of Justice. And now the Department of Justice is basically going to tell them that they are going to have to abide by the decision and face severe penalties. This clip is from the Roland Martin show, TV One, outlining the details.
Justice is filing a lawsuit in federal district court against the city of Ferguson, Missouri, alleging a pattern and practice of law enforcement conduct that violates the First, the Fourth, and the 14th Amendments of the Constitution and federal civil rights laws. The city was well aware that by deciding not to accept it, that they were choosing litigation. This is their choice. It is extremely unfortunate that the city has chosen to litigate this matter rather than move directly to these remedies and reforms that would, in fact, have been proven a benefit to the city and avoided the cost of litigation.
Well, Attorney General Loretta Lynch announced the DOJ civil rights lawsuit against the city of Ferguson, Missouri. After a protracted meeting, the city rejected a negotiated agreement with the DOJ aimed at improving the way police and courts treat minorities. This, of course, took place after the city council made several revisions to an agreement with the DOJ. Yeah, seriously. They decided to make revisions to an agreed deal. This is nuts. Now, of course, they raised concerns saying the cost was going to be too high implementing the agreement, although they didn't mind actually ticketing black folks left and right. Ferguson has been under scrutiny since the shooting death of 18-year-old Michael Brown, a white officer, Darren Wilson, last year. The officer was never charged, but the Justice Department released a report criticizing the unfair targeting of blacks in the city. Now the mayor and city council say they're ready to negotiate a new agreement. DOJ says not going to happen. Joining me via Skype from Ferguson is Brittany Packnett, a planning member of Campaign Zero, an activist organization. Of course, in the studio, we have Barbara Onwide, president and founder of Transformative Justice Coalition, Rena Shaw-Barara, Republican political strategist and consultant, also Midwin Charles, a legal analyst here as well. Brittany, I want to start with you. You were actually at the hearing. I was following your tweets, and it was stunning that there was all of this discussion about this deal, then all of a sudden, at the last minute, they decided to slide in Plan B, virtually no discussion, passed it, meeting over.
Yeah, that was the great frustration of the vast majority of the residents there. They had been engaging not just at that meeting, but at two previous public comment meetings prior. And so one woman stood up and said, well, what have you been having us talk about all this time? It was a bait and switch that left people really unsatisfied and with a really bad taste in their mouths.
Now, first of all, again, I was following those tweets, and it was lots of testimony. The city all of a sudden says, hey, we can't afford this, but they've made millions off of ticketing black folks. Now all of a sudden they say we can't afford it?
Yeah, so myself and Kayla Reed, another activist from here in St. Louis, actually talked to the council member who proposed the amendments afterwards. His rationale was that it wasn't going to pass without making about 6 changes that would make the consent decree more palpable, in part to successor agencies that might take over in Ferguson should the Ferguson Police Department dissolve. Well, quite frankly, the problem is that the rules in Ferguson and across St. Louis have been too palpable for police departments and not good enough for the people. And at the end of the day, trying to renegotiate on the back end declared the consent decree null and void anyway. So it has the same effect as not passing it at all.
I want to go to our panel here. First of all, how unbelievably crazy it is for a city to agree to an agreement, then all of a sudden go, that's okay.
Well, that's what I find the most astonishing about this is the defiance and the sort of we're going to thumb our nose at the federal government.
And we're going to alter an agreement.
And we're going to alter an agreement. I mean, this is a city that has already been under fire for violating civil rights. And here it is that you have the federal government, the Department of Justice, stepping in and saying, these are the appropriate remedies that I think that you need to abide by. And instead, rather than saying, okay, fine, we recognize that we've been wrong, they decided they're going to thumb their nose at the federal government. It's unbelievable.
Barbara, you're a civil rights attorney. I mean, this certainly sounds unbelievable and crazy.
Well, it's outrageous. And I'm so glad that Attorney General Loretta Lynch is continuing the tradition of Eric Holder and saying, we're not going to put up with this. I mean, it's a great complaint. I've been reading it. I like the fact that it comes out of the Constitution, talking about the First, the Fourth, and the 14th Amendment violations, raises Title VI claims, and also, really looks at other, statutory violations. It's very important that we hold the city of Ferguson accountable. It's the police department, it's the municipal courts, and what I love about this lawsuit is the city prosecuting attorney that they go after. So this is a very broad lawsuit. It's very well done. I like the fact that they also included the interference with protesters' rights, that they included all of these fines and stops and arrests. I mean, it's a very comprehensive lawsuit. It's one of the best I've seen.
Look, I'm not going to argue that this isn't something that is a good thing, right? I mean, especially when there's constitutional violations. I do appreciate that Loretta Lynch said, basically, these are amendment violations. What the problem for me is here is that I'm a fan of local governance. I think local governance is the best type of governance, and I'm afraid that when we let a federal agency come in and say, hey, local government, you're not doing this well.
But local governance
doing it well. When they're violating the rights of their own citizens.
But what about
They are arresting, they're arresting.
Local governance has failed here. That really is the bottom line. It has failed.
But do we
and I think a city council.
One second.
But do we think a city council elected by the people could fix this? That's where I'm conflicted in giving all the authority to the agency.
Brittany, go ahead.
So that is what one of the council members asserted on the other evening, and what was yelled back very quickly was that we don't trust you to do that. Protesters and the citizens of Ferguson have continued to be assaulted by the government there and by agents of the government, and so there's not a lot of trust in that city, understandably so, for that to happen. I think the thing that I am legitimately worried about is how much this is going to cost the taxpayers of Ferguson, who have been suffering for long enough, and so I absolutely appreciate and agree with the lawsuit. I'm glad that the Department of Justice and the Department of Civil Rights within it has been one of the few government entities to actually keep its promise to the people of Ferguson. And I hope they find a resolution to this lawsuit that holds the elected and appointed officials of Ferguson accountable financially or otherwise, and allows the people of Ferguson to move forward.
Well, let me say this when it comes to this whole issue of local governance. When you fail your people, well, then that's when you have the DOJ, so they have to step in. Had they done right, had they not been taxing people, had they not been using police officers, when you had an average of 4 warrants per household in the city, had you not had the kind of arrest, then you wouldn't have this. But the purpose of the Department of Justice is to ensure that the rights of the residents there are not played with by the city of Ferguson. And this is real simple. If you don't want the DOJ coming in, handle your business right. And this city council failed because they did not have proper oversight of the city manager, of the police chief, of the court, of the city secretary. So they failed. So if you want to complain, if they want to complain after the fact, suck it up. You could have fixed this. They didn't, and it was the mayor of Ferguson who said early on, we don't have an issue with race in Ferguson. But it wasn't until about a month later, he goes, oh my goodness, I didn't realize we had this problem. Yeah, because you were not paying attention. That's the real issue here.
But also, they were
real quick, then I go to the next story.
They were purposeful because they knew that their revenue was coming from these fines.
Yes.
They knew that they had doubled those revenues from it. This was a betrayal of the people of Ferguson.
And it's fiscally irresponsible, like she said, the concerned about how much this is going to cost the taxpayers, they are again hurting the people of Ferguson by being so defiant, because now they're going to have to put up money to defend this lawsuit against the civil rights.
I'll agree with that.
Brittany, final word. Go ahead.
That's fiscally irresponsible.
That is the fault of local Ferguson government. At the end of the day, we know historically the federal government often has to step in to protect the interests of people of color, and I think the DOJ did the right thing in doing so here.
All right, then, Brittany Patton, we surely appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Now, this is what killed me. That lady on the right, let's see if I can scan back to it real quick. The lady on the right there, guess she's Middle Eastern descent. Anyway, how she could say that she's against the federal government coming in because she's a fan of local government. If the federal government doesn't come in to right the wrongs, who the hell is supposed to right the wrongs? Because the damn sure that the city government, they were the ones that were perpetrating the crimes against the citizens. So without the federal government, they would have just continued to run roughshod over the citizens, and there would have been no justice. So I'm going to continue to follow up on this to see exactly how fast the city of Ferguson gets on their knees, because the federal government looks like they want to land on them with both feet.